Good evening, everyone. It's Father Bob Gross, and this is my first video since coming back from silent retreat. And I finally got to it on Thursday evening. It's almost 10 o'clock tonight, and I wanted to share, for those who maybe were gone for the weekend, my homily from last week on Sunday. So it's Thursday night, and I'm finally getting my Sunday homily up. So we'll be getting back to offering regular Sunday homilies on the YouTube channel. Thanks for your patience. And yeah, I just want to share with you. It's been a beautiful day today. I really hope you were able to get outside today. Um, just perfect. Open your windows and let the cool air into the house. So, if you remember last weekend's readings, one of them was the parable uh, from Jesus in the Gospel of Luke of the question goes, a man says to Jesus, Lord, tell my brother to share my inheritance with me. And then the Lord says, take every care to guard against all greed. And he talked about the parable of the farmer who, because of a bountiful harvest, tore down all his barns and built bigger ones. And he trusted in his harvest. And he drank and he ate and he only worried about what he had materially. But that very night his life was demanded of him. And Jesus tells that parable to say, well, are you rich in what matters to God as compared to are you rich in what matters to the world? So what I want to do is just use that gospel as bookends to my reflection on sharing some of the graces that I've received from the spiritual exercises, the 30-day retreat that I just got done with. So I want to share that with you today. So I first want to start with a story, and it deals with the gospel. Back in 2005, I was a seminarian, and I was assigned to St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City. And I was a chaplain at the hospital. And one day I called my vocation director at the time, Father Scott Bullock, and he's in Waterloo at St. Ed's. And I was calling him. I said, "Hi, Father Scott. I just wanted to see how things are going. How's your summer going?" And he says to me on the phone, "Bob, I can't talk right now." I'm like, "Oh, why? Why can't you talk? I'll call you later. The Vianney house is on fire. I'll call you back." And he hangs up the phone. You could tell he was kind of frantic and worried. And here's the thought that I legitimately had when I first heard that. The Vianney house, the seminary house where all the seminarians live, was the place where I had all of my personal belongings stored. So did I think about the firefighters? No. Did I think about the fellow seminarians? Did I think about the priests? Did I think about anyone? No. I said this prayer, Lord, please take care of my stuff. So I needed that parable way back in 2005. I bring that up because the spiritual exercises that I just received and did is really was an exodus for me from mixed motives of being a priest to the right motives for being a priest. That's what that's what the journey was, from mixed motives to right motives. And it really comes up with this question, are you rich in what matters to God? And what does it mean to be rich in God? So I just want to share a couple truths that I have encountered and saw and experienced with Christ on the 30 days. So the 30-day silent retreat was put together by St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits. And it all came out of his experience. When he was a young man, he was in a battle and a cannonball went through his leg and shattered his leg, and he was convalescing for close to 6 to 7 months. And during that time, God used that cannonball to make Ignatius weak enough to be open to God. Because up to that point, Ignatius was not living a godly life. He was baptized, probably went to church a lot of times, but he was Christian for all the wrong reasons. And God got his attention with a cannonball. And after that, he went to a town in Spain called Manresa, and he had a 12-month experience of praying to God. And in that intense experience, through graces and the mistakes that Ignatius made, the spiritual exercises emerged. And Ignatius's experience was so powerful to him that he wanted others to experience what he experienced. And that's what he has given to the church, and that's what the Jesuits are the guardians of. So I was able to experience that. I spent 30 days of silence with the Lord, and I reflected on my life, and then I reflected intensely and personally on the life of Jesus. And I learned 3 really powerful things. Number 1, that Jesus is real. He is alive. And he wants all of us to have a personal encounter with him. Now that might sound very basic. It might sound Protestant. It might sound like, I've heard that before, Lord. I've heard that before, Father. But it was a deeply personal time of appropriating and experiencing for myself all the scriptures that we hear at Sunday Mass. The second thing that I learned in the spiritual exercises is that the devil is real as well. And he wants to destroy everything good in our lives. That's what he wants to destroy, everything that is good. But the Lord wants to teach you the snares of the devil so you can avoid them and trust in your relationship with God. And thirdly, God has to get your attention sometimes in order for him to speak to your heart. So I want to give you 2 examples, and they're pretty funny. It's probably a 4th thing. God is funny. Well, I was on the campus of Creighton University where I did the retreat, and I was wearing a shirt like this, and I have a pocket right here. And I was sitting on a bench, and above me, a beetle from a tree fell into my pocket. I'm like, oh gosh, this beetle's in my pocket, and I'm trying to get the beetle out. And it finally popped out and it fell down on the ground. And the beetle started to crawl up my leg, right there outside. And I'm like, this is a strange beetle. So then I brushed the beetle away. And then the beetle started to come up my leg again. Then I brushed it away. Then the beetle was going to come up a 3rd time. I'm like, this beetle ain't doing that again. And I went, squish the beetle. And the moment I squished the beetle, a voice came to my mind that said, oh, that's how you feel about your poverty, your weakness. And I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, Lord, I killed the beetle. But the Lord used that experience to show me that we are poor, spiritually poor. And we are most authentically human when we completely depend on our relationship with God. God used that to get my attention. The second time that he got my attention was in the cafeteria. The last week of the retreat, you reflect upon the resurrection. And during the time that I was reflecting on the passion of Jesus, I didn't have any sweets or anything that was unhealthy. But once resurrection came, I'm like, I'm having some food I like. And I went into the cafeteria and they were having deep fried tater tots. I'm like, yes, tater tots, cheeseburger, Diet Pepsi. It's going to be a good day. So I ate a big old plate of tater tots. And after I was done with the first plate, I'm like, I'm going to have more tater tots. So I go over and fill the plate with tater tots. And as I'm going over to the fountain to get some more Diet Pepsi, I didn't realize that the plate was starting to tip and all the tater tots fell to the ground in front of everyone in the cafeteria. In the past, before the retreat, I would be muttering under my breath. I'd be criticizing myself. I would be swearing at myself for being such a klutz. And then I stopped myself and there was a moment of like, oh, I'm a klutz. Is it the end of the world? I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be striving to be faithful. And God used that little experience to share that lesson with me. So those are just two examples of how God showed his realness through the ordinary. And doesn't that sound like the sacraments? Using ordinary bread and ordinary wine and turning it into his body and blood. So this brings us then to the other bookend. What does it mean to be rich in what matters to God? The 30-day retreat taught me this is what matters to God. Poverty of spirit, dependency on God, vulnerability with God, surrender to God, relationship with God, and that it really is about love. Love of God and love of neighbor, deeds and mutual sharing with God. And the evil one is trying to cloud our judgment about the essential truth of what Jesus is all about, to reveal the love of his Father and to give that love personally to each of us. So, are you rich in what matters to God? I found out that I wasn't. And it was humbling. But Jesus was gentle in humbling me to show me what it means to be rich in what matters to God. So I pray that encourages you. And my last point would say is that I prayed for all of you during the 30-day retreat, especially my parishioners and family and friends. I took the directory that we have of the parishes and I looked at all of your pictures. And I prayed for all of you for at least 1 hour, all of you. And I have to say to you, I felt closer to you in praying for you for 30 days than I did in the last 4 years of being with you. And I'm so happy to be back and to be with you. I really got to see you through God's eyes during this retreat. And I'm very grateful to be with you and to be your priest and to be your pastor. So I'm kind of going on and on like I did with Sunday Mass. I don't know what to say, but I have so much to say. So from this point on, I feel the call to share the consolation that God has given to me. To share the consolation that God has given me. And I pray that that happens and that we do that together. So may God bless you, and I'll see you at church on Sunday. Got some great readings coming up, and may the consolation of Jesus always be with you. Peace and God bless. Have a good night.